The sun hit the chrome of the Rolls Royce like a spotlight, drawing every curious eye in the neighborhood as it rolled past beige stucco homes and manicured rocks. Grant Weaver, a man who once bought cars for billionaires and now lived behind a modest fence, pulled into his new driveway like he didn't owe anyone an explanation, but the car said otherwise. Cactus Ridge was a community obsessed with order. Grass lengths, trash bin angles, even dog leash colors were debated. So when a 2008 Phantom parked outside house number 41 with out-of-state plates and no HOA decal, the street practically gasped. Karen Stilton, the HOA president with a laminated badge she printed herself, didn't wait long. She stood across the street in her visor and windbreaker, arms crossed, tapping a clipboard against her thigh like she was waiting to pounce. And she did. The knock came the next morning, not firm, not polite, just persistent. Grant opened the door halfway. "That car's not registered. You didn't submit any vehicle forms," Karen said without a smile. "It's not staying long," Grant replied. "I just got in." "Then I suggest you park it somewhere legal," she snapped, glancing toward her golf cart like it was backup. What Karen didn't know, and what Grant hoped to keep that way, was that the Rolls wasn't entirely his. The car had been seized by the D from a crime ring in Nevada, and Grant was babysitting it for an investigation. It was rigged with more surveillance than a casino vault, but it looked too good, too clean, and too Karen. It looked like a violation. By day 3, warnings appeared on the windshield. By day 4, someone had scratched Move IT into the dust on the hood. Grant didn't react. He didn't need to. Someone else already was. Agent Miles Deacon sat in a tinted van just outside the community gate, watching, listening. The tracker under the seat pinged every 10 seconds. And when the signal moved at 2:16 a.m. that Friday, it wasn't Grant driving. The car was gone. Karen had watched Grant leave for a night walk. She'd waited, and she'd used the duplicate clicker she'd made when she briefly had access to the car. The HOA's towing threats hadn't worked, so she decided to relocate the car herself, straight to the community clubhouse lot where she thought it could be discussed publicly the next morning. Only she didn't make it. Agent Deacon's phone lit up the moment the car left the perimeter. His orders were simple: if it moves without clearance, follow. But Karen took a wrong turn at mile marker 12 and drove directly into a checkpoint set up for a completely different OP. They flagged the plate. They drew weapons. She screamed. By the time Deacon arrived, Karen was in cuffs, demanding to speak to the Homeowners Association attorney. Grant, meanwhile, was sipping iced tea from his porch. But it wasn't over. Not by a mile. Because the agents ran the car's surveillance footage and found more than Karen's short joyride. They saw someone else inside the car 2 nights earlier. Someone Karen knew. Someone who had no business even being near a federal seizure. Grant saw the footage, and his stomach dropped. Karen hadn't just taken the car. She'd opened a door into something buried deeper and far more dangerous than HOA politics. The sun hadn't even risen by the time Karen was released. The agents weren't interested in pressing charges for now. They had bigger things to sort. And Karen, rattled and humiliated, sped her golf cart back through the gates of Cactus Ridge, muttering to herself about lawsuits, overreach, and how she was the real victim. But Grant wasn't sleeping either. He stood barefoot in his kitchen, watching the security feed on his iPad. It wasn't from his own cameras. It was what Agent Deacon had shown him. Just 2 hours earlier from inside the Rolls, the car had been fitted with 4 interior cams and a hidden dash recorder. Standard surveillance loadout when you're dealing with ex-cartel property. And on the night before Karen ever touched the car, the feed showed someone climbing inside with a flashlight and gloves. He never started the engine, but he opened compartments. He reached under the rear floor mat. Then he pulled something out of the vent. Grant paused the video. He knew that face. It was Ronnie Stilton, Karen's nephew, ex-con fake handyman, and walking red flag. Karen had brought him into the neighborhood to help with pool repairs, but Grant always suspected the guy had other intentions. Now, it was confirmed. Ronnie had known exactly what was hidden in that car, and he wasn't after the stereo. What did he take? Grant had asked Deacon earlier. The agent hesitated. "We don't know yet, but it was planted as bait." That car was wired for a reason. The feds had expected someone to snoop. They just didn't expect it to be the HOA president's sketchy nephew. And now, with Ronnie in the wind and Karen digging her own hole deeper every hour, Grant was caught in a storm he hadn't asked for. But he wasn't the only one who noticed. Later that day, Cody Grant's 17-year-old son slid into the kitchen with his laptop open. "Dad, check this out," he said. "Next door's blowing up." Cody had been tracking HOA gossip threads for years, mostly for laughs. But this time, the screenshots were real. Karen's Rolls Royce stunt had gone public, and the comments were brutal. She took it. Like, grand theft HOA. This is why we don't let her near the clubhouse keys. Did she even have insurance on that golf cart? But one comment stood out. "I saw her nephew sneaking around their house again last night. Thought he was fixing sprinklers? Guess not." Grant leaned in. "Which house?" "Karen's, but get this. She posted the car was removed for safety. She's acting like it was her decision. Grant's jaw clenched. Karen wasn't just lying. She was scrambling. That afternoon, he walked out and found Karen standing in her yard, waving a hose over a dry patch of gravel. She looked up like nothing had happened. You planning another road trip? He asked. Voice calm. Karen narrowed her eyes. That car was illegally parked, and your nephew, was he helping with that too? Her face didn't twitch, but her grip on the hose tightened. I don't know what you're implying. You might want to find out, Grant said, before someone else does. Because here was the twist. Ronnie hadn't just taken something, he'd returned to hide it again. Later that evening, Grant checked his garage cam and froze. There it was. Just a shadow at first, then a clear frame. Ronnie, back inside, only this time, he wasn't alone. A second figure stood near the passenger door, and they left behind a package. Grant called Deacon. Within an hour, the feds swept the car again and found a sealed envelope hidden inside the seat. No fingerprints, no tracking devices, just one piece of paper with 4 words. You owe us one. Grant had been used. Whatever was originally in that car, money, intel, or leverage, was part of something far older than he realized. And now, the game wasn't just about HOA drama or a stolen car. It was about who Grant used to work for, and what he still owed. The morning after the envelope was found, Grant didn't open his garage. He stood in the living room, blinds closed, watching the sunrise with a mug of stale coffee and the weight of something old pressing on his chest. He hadn't heard from Agent Deacon since the envelope was collected. No follow-up, no explanations, just silence. Grant didn't like silence. Not after years of working side deals for private collectors and government men who only smiled when a job was done. He'd moved stolen cars for rich men, laundered titles for politicians' nephews, and once helped seize a warlord's yacht. But all that was supposed to be behind him, until a woman with a badge-shaped ego hijacked a car that was never supposed to be touched. And now, it wasn't just the feds watching. Someone else had left that message. Someone who remembered what Grant had done before the suburbs and HOA newsletters. He was halfway through his second cup when Cody barged in. Dad, you gotta see this. Grant followed him to the back patio, where Cody pointed his phone at the neighbor's Ring camera footage. It had been posted anonymously in a private group for local teens. On it, Ronnie could be seen sneaking through Karen's yard the night before, holding a black case. But what made Grant's blood run cold wasn't what Ronnie was carrying. It was where he dropped it, right at the base of the HOA office's side door. That office was just a glorified shed behind the clubhouse, filled with printer ink, boring forms, and petty complaints. But apparently, it now held something far more dangerous. Grant's phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. Just one sentence in a text. Check the HOA's laptop before Karen does. He didn't hesitate. Within 10 minutes, Grant was at the clubhouse with a fake maintenance badge and a pair of bolt cutters. The HOA building was unlocked. Careless. Or maybe someone wanted him to find what was inside. The moment he cracked open the cabinet near the back desk, he saw it. A matte black case, tucked between rolls of printer paper. He opened it slowly. Inside was a flash drive and a printed map of the neighborhood. Several properties were circled in red. His own was one of them. Grant slid the drive into the HOA laptop, its screen flickering to life. The folders loaded slowly, and then came the punch videos. Dozens of them, all labeled by address. Most were grainy surveillance clips, backyard conversations, license plates zoomed in. One even showing a neighbor exchanging a thick envelope at 2 a.m., and every file had a time. Every clip had been saved by Karen. She hadn't just been running the HOA, she'd been recording the entire neighborhood, spying on residents, compiling leverage, and someone had slipped her more footage. Footage of Grant's car, of Ronnie, of D agents. It wasn't blackmail yet, but it was close. Grant grabbed the flash drive and stuffed it into his pocket. Just as the door creaked open. Karen, you shouldn't be in here, she said flatly. Grant didn't flinch. Someone planted something dangerous in your files. I'm removing it before you get hurt. I know what's in there. Do you? He held her gaze. Because the people I used to work with don't knock before they clean up mistakes. Karen's face twitched. I never asked for that footage. Ronnie dropped it off, and you kept it. I thought it might be useful. Grant stepped forward. Karen, you're in deep with people you don't understand. This isn't HOA court. This is federal fire. But Karen wasn't scared. Not yet. She looked calm, even smug. I've already made a backup, she said. If anything happens to me, the right people will see everything. Grant stared at her, searching for a crack in her confidence. There wasn't one. That's when it hit him. She wasn't trying to bury the footage. She was planning to use it, not for blackmail, for power. Karen didn't want to run the HOA anymore. She wanted control of everything, and now, she had ammo that reached all the way to the D. By the next morning. The calm desert neighborhood didn't feel calm anymore. Cars slowed near Grant's driveway. Curtains barely moved, but he knew eyes were watching. Word had spread about the stolen rolls, about Karen's detainment, and about the mysterious case she reportedly received in the dead of night. Most neighbors just wanted the whole thing to disappear before the HOA meeting on Friday. But Grant knew better. Nothing was going away. It was circling, tightening, and now. Karen had made her move. Grant stepped out to find a neon orange citation duct taped to his garage. Not slipped under the door. Not folded politely. Taped, double quotes, final. HOA violation, community safety review required. Immediate hearing. It was signed by Karen, with a date. And a location. The Friday HOA meeting. She's trying to make me the show, Grant muttered, crumpling the paper in one hand. She's making it public? Cody leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed. She's setting you up. I know, Grant replied, and I think she wants the D to watch it happen. Later that afternoon, Agent Deacon finally showed up, but not with backup. He came alone, sunglasses on, jaw tight. Your neighbors? Officially gone off script, he said as Grant led him inside. We didn't authorize any files to be passed. That envelope, it wasn't ours, which means someone else is playing this game. Grant handed him the flash drive. Karen has a backup. Probably more. Deacon slid it into a pouch and zipped it shut. We're watching her. We'll act when the time is right. That might be too late, Grant said. She's planning something at the meeting. Deacon paused. And if she leaks something in public, Grant shrugged, then we all burn together. The agent didn't laugh. Later that evening, the neighborhood group chat blew up. Cody showed Grant his phone. What's this about, Ann? Emergency safety review on Grant's property. Karen just posted a poll about banning suspicious vehicles. Wait, she's calling the car a security risk. She's making it look like I'm a threat, Grant said, and she's turning the community into her audience. Then Cody frowned. Dad, she's streaming the HOA meeting. Grant's stomach dropped. The next day passed like a slow hurricane. Grant barely slept. The heat baked the sidewalk outside until the air shimmered. But inside, he was iced. He printed documents, he called in favors. And before sunset, he made one final call to someone he hadn't spoken to in a long time, a woman with clearance higher than Deacon's and a grudge to match. At exactly 7 p.m. on Friday, Grant walked into the community clubhouse. The meeting already packed with folding chairs and folding arms. The crowd was restless. Karen stood at the front like a news anchor, her HOA board flanking her like a jury. Phones were up. A live feed was rolling, and at the center of it all, behind Karen, was a mounted flat screen showing a paused video clip, Grant's Rolls Royce. Parked with two shadows standing beside it, the feed was primed to play. Karen smiled sweetly. Thank you all for attending. This emergency review, tonight, will discuss serious concerns about our community's safety, and Grant raised his hand. Permission to speak. Karen hesitated, then nodded. He stepped forward slowly, calmly, and then he reached into his jacket and placed a black remote on the table. Before we start, Grant said, you should all know something. That car you saw, it's not just mine. It's not just a car. It's a federal asset, and it's wired murmurs, shifting in chairs. Karen paled slightly. Grant pressed a button. The screen behind her blinked. The video clip disappeared, replaced by a live feed from the Rolls Royce, parked outside. I've had this feed the whole time, he said. So have others. And if anyone in this room was involved in tampering with federal property, Karen lunged for the remote. But the screen changed again, showing footage from inside her own garage. The crowd gasped. Karen froze. You're not the only one who collects footage, Grant said. But here's the difference. I don't use it to control people. Silence. Then someone in the back clapped. And another. But the tension hadn't left because Karen didn't crumble. She didn't retreat. She just stared at Grant with a look he'd only seen once before from a man who'd threatened him with a knife over a Ferrari title in Bogota. This wasn't over, and now it was personal. The HOA meeting ended without a vote, without a ruling, and without Karen saying another word. But she didn't need to speak. Her exit said everything. No storming out, no raised voice, just a quiet, measured retreat down the center aisle with her clipboard pressed to her chest like a chessboard she still planned to finish playing. Grant stayed behind, shaking hands with a few neighbors who now seemed more confused than angry. The crowd had come for drama, but they'd witnessed something else, something that made most of them nervous enough to avoid eye contact. And Karen. She'd seen the message loud and clear, but Grant knew better than to believe that meant surrender. Later, that night, the Rolls stayed parked behind the house, deep in shadow. Grant paced the living room, lights off, ears tuned to every creak in the floor. Cody was upstairs with his headphones on, but even he was checking the cameras every half hour. That's when the motion alert pinged. Back gate opened. Grant tapped into the feed. The figure was small, fast, hooded. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside, staying to the shadows. The desert wind kicked up dust as he moved along the fence line, eyes trained on the far side. Then he saw it. Not a person. A bag. Left on the patio table with no note. Grant approached slowly. Zipper closed. No ticking. He opened it. Inside: a manila folder, Werner phone, thick stack of HOA violation notices. Not his on one photograph the photo showed. Karen and Ronnie sitting in a diner booth across from a man whose face Grant knew all too well. Vin Rojas. Years ago, Vin was a trafficker who dealt in high-end, stolen vehicles, and offshore laundering. Grant had crossed paths with him once, back when he was flipping international titles under federal watch. Vin had been slippery, brutal, and impossible to pin down. He also disappeared 2 years ago. Until now, the photo timestamp was just 10 days old. Grant flipped through the folder. It wasn't just HOA records. It was a pattern. Properties being bought up quietly, under LLCs, businesses opening and closing within a mile of Cactus Ridge. Vin's name wasn't on anything, but the signs were there. Cactus Ridge wasn't just a battleground of petty fines and parking disputes. It was about control of the land, and someone, maybe Vin, maybe Karen, maybe both, was using the HOA as a front. Grant sat down, knuckles white around the phone. The burner lit up just as he pressed the side button. One message, "You're in now, play smart." The number disappeared a second later. The next day, Cody burst in holding a local flyer. "Dad, they're fast-tracking a zoning review on the land behind the community. Karen's name is on the proposal." Grant grabbed the paper. The area they were talking about that was supposed to be protected desert buffer. Now someone wanted to push development through. Quietly, the HOA wasn't just being used to snoop or harass. It was being used to clear land, displace owners, and control real estate that nobody was watching closely. Until now, Grant made a decision. He pulled up the footage from the diner on his laptop and snapped a screenshot of Vin's face. Then he emailed it directly to Agent Deacon, adding only one line, "He's alive, and he's in my neighborhood." The response came in less than 2 minutes. "Sit tight, do not approach him, and for God's sake don't let Karen know we're onto him." Grant closed the laptop. Too late for that. That evening, while walking back from the mailbox, Grant found Karen waiting by his porch, calm, smiling. "You put on quite the show last night," she said. "You left me no choice." She stepped closer. "There's a bigger game happening than you think. One, you started long before you moved here." He raised an eyebrow. "And who told you that? Your nephew?" She grinned. "Let's just say, I have friends who remember your early work." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Karen leaned in, voice low, careful. "Grant, this isn't about an HOA anymore. It's about who still owes what, and who's ready to collect." She turned and walked off into the dark. Grant stood frozen because this time, she wasn't bluffing. The next morning arrived with still air and a rising heat that clung to the windows like a warning. Grant hadn't slept. His mind replayed words over and over, not because of her tone, but because of the way she'd said it. She wasn't just bluffing. She'd been given something. Information, leverage, maybe even protection. Grant made 2 calls that morning. One was to an old contact at a title office in Flagstaff, someone who owed him a favor from his former life. The other was to a locked number he hadn't dialed in almost a decade. Neither call made him feel any better. By noon, Cody reported something new. "Dad." Karen's nephew posted a photo. Look on Cody's phone. Ronnie was grinning. Next to a black SUV, Grant recognized from the footage at the diner. In the background, a stretch of dusty highway outside town, and a set of coordinates in the caption. "Why would he post that?" Cody asked. Grant didn't respond. Because that stretch of road led to a turnoff known by only a handful of people in Arizona's underground. It was where deals were done when no one wanted to be seen. It was where Grant had once delivered a car packed with hidden gems under the seat cushions, under federal watch. And now, Karen's people were inviting him back. By 2 p.m., Grant was driving the Rolls again for the first time in days. But not out of pride, out of strategy. He'd loaded it with 2 GPS devices, a mic, and a backup transmitter. If anything went sideways, Agent Deacon would know. At least, Grant hoped. He still had Deacon's full attention. The coordinates took him 20 miles out of town, past the dust barriers, past the mile markers, until the road narrowed into a dirt trail that hadn't been traveled in years. At the end of it sat an abandoned ranch house with a rotted front porch and a single vehicle parked in front. Grant stepped out. And there he was. Vin Rojas, older, slower, but unmistakably dangerous. He wore an open shirt, silver rings, and a gold tooth that flashed every time he grinned. "You brought the Rolls," Vin said. "I always loved that about you. Style first, questions later." Grant didn't smile. "You've been busy." Vin motioned him over to a rusted-out patio table. 2 chairs, a cooler with a half-dozen drinks, and 1 thick folder. "You've probably figured it out by now," Vin said. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for real estate." Grant stayed standing. Through an HOA, Vin chuckled. "Karen has ambition. I have vision. She wants rules. I want dirt. It works." What's in the folder? Proof of ownership. 10 properties, all tied to Karen's newly minted land trust. She doesn't even know half the paperwork's in her name. Grant narrowed his eyes. "And you want me to do what? Back off?" "Approve, Variensving leaned in. "I want you to help finish the process. Clear to more holdout homes. Quietly, then we file a development grant, flip the land, and you disappear clean. And if I don't," Vin's smile faded. "Then Karen gets scared. She leaks something sloppy, and the feds panic. You think they'll protect you if this goes wide?" Grant felt his stomach tighten. This wasn't about one community. It was a test run. A land flip wrapped in red tape and HOA rules, using scared homeowners and fake violations to slowly push people out. Why now? Grant asked. Why me? Vin stood, brushing dust off his sleeves. Because no one watches HOA paperwork. And because you, my friend, already proved you can play dirty when the price is right. Then he walked toward the SUV. You have 48 hours, he called. Then we file with or without you. Grant stood alone for a long time, staring at the folder left behind. That night, as he pulled into his driveway, Cody was waiting. You okay? His son asked. Grant said nothing. He handed Cody the folder. Go through this every page. Every name. If we're going to stop this, we need to know what they've already done. Then he walked past the rolls, opened the garage, and revealed something he hadn't touched in years. A steel case marked only with a small serial code. On inside was everything he'd ever kept from his past life. Records, codes, burner numbers, and a small device that looked like a toy but had once shut down an entire criminal network's communications in under 3 seconds. Grant didn't know who he could trust anymore, but he knew one thing. If Ven wanted a quiet flip, he picked the wrong house to threaten. The next 48 hours were a countdown Grant didn't take lightly. Every second ticked by with a purpose. Every camera check and callback timed to the minute. But as the sun dipped behind the Arizona ridge on day 2, Grant wasn't scrambling. He was preparing. He hadn't forgotten what people like Vin did when a deal went sideways. Threats became disappearances. Mistakes became fire. And Karen, she'd gone silent, not quiet. Silent, no flyers, no door knocks, not a single HOA citation. Posted her house sat dark, her mailbox untouched. And Grant knew that wasn't a retreat, it was strategy. By the time night fell, Grant had called in his last favor from someone he'd hoped to never speak to again. Dina Marsh, former NSA contractor turned digital ghost. They'd worked together years back on a case involving intercepted cartel data hidden inside car computers. She still owed him one favor, and he cashed it in. Dina didn't say much. She didn't need to. By 9 p.m., she sent a single file to Grant's inbox, a decryption key, one that unlocked Karen's HOA-issued laptop. Remotely, Grant watched as the screen flooded with files, voice recordings, internal messages, and, something worse, a map labeled Target Clearance Order Phase 2. 5 homes, including Lot 62, circled in red. Grant's address wasn't on it, but Cody's girlfriend's family was. So was old Mrs. Trent's, and all 5 had refused the HOA's latest rezoning survey. This isn't leverage, Grant whispered. It's a hit list. And the clearance was scheduled for 2 a.m. That gave him less than 5 hours. He printed the documents, loaded his gear into the rolls, and tucked a transmitter into the engine bay, one that would activate on movement. If anyone tried to take the car, Agent Deacon would know instantly. Cody insisted on coming. You said it yourself, he said. This started with our driveway. I'm not sitting out the ending. They parked across from Lot 62, a quiet cul-de-sac where nothing ever happened, unless you were watching. And Grant was by 1:47 a.m., 2 black SUVs rolled in. No headlights, no sound, just shadow. Cody gripped the binoculars while Grant activated the infrared on his tablet. 4 men stepped out. One of them was Ronnie. Another was a man Grant didn't recognize until he moved. The same gait, same slouch. Vin. The group approached Lot 62 quietly. A back gate was forced open. Then came the signal Grant had been waiting for. 3 taps on the tablet, sent from Dina's side. Transmission live. The HOA meeting room, the federal desk in Phoenix. And Agent Deacon's team were now watching the entire thing in real time, but Grant didn't wait for backup. He stepped out of the car and triggered the remote kill switch Dina had provided. In an instant, the entire cul-de-sac went dark. Every light, every camera, gone. Except his from across the street. Vin shouted, "That you, Grant?" Grant replied from the shadows, "It is, and you brought friends." Vin didn't flinch. "You brought interference." Grant stepped forward. "This isn't an HOA play anymore. You've got surveillance wires, a federal agent feed, and a stolen utility keycard linked to Karen's name. I don't even have to touch you. You're already boxed in." Ronnie moved like he was about to charge, until a red dot settled on his chest. One by one, other lights appeared. Quiet boots, quiet voices, D-Tactical team. They'd been waiting just off the main road, watching, recording, and now they moved fast. Vin didn't resist. Neither did Ronnie. Within 90 seconds, both were in cuffs. The rest of the crew had vanished into the dark, but not before the agents tagged every plate. Grant stood silently as Deacon approached. "You really don't know how to sit still, do you?" "I waited 5 hours, Grant said. "You took your time. We needed to make it stick," Deacon replied. "And thanks to you, it will." That night, as the cul-de-sac lit back up, and the agents swept for tech, Karen was nowhere to be found. Her house, empty, vacant, like she'd never lived there at all. But Grant knew better, because tucked under the front doormat, beneath the HOA newsletter, was a postcard. No name, no address. Just 4 words, scribbled in red ink. "I was never alone." By sunrise, the quiet hum of federal vans faded into the distance. Ronnie and Vin were gone. their operation buried under warrants and sealed files. But Grant wasn't celebrating, because Karen Stilton was still missing, and the postcard she left behind said one thing louder than any explosion: she planned this. All of it. Grant sat on his porch, tired eyes staring at the spot where her golf cart used to sit. The HOA directory no longer listed her name. Her contact info had been scrubbed. Her email bounced. And the federal agents. They found no official HOA filing in her name, no election, no board minutes, no legal record she was ever authorized to act on behalf of. Cactus Ridge. Karen had never been HOA president. She was a ghost with a clipboard. I think I just saw the realest fake in this entire community, Grant muttered, watching his neighbors shuffled past, waving cautiously now, like they knew. Finally, something dark had been bubbling beneath the surface, and they had no clue how close they'd come to being swallowed. Then Cody stepped out with a file. Dad, look at this. You know the HOA welcome packet Karen handed us when we moved in? Grant flipped through it. Standard stuff. Trash schedules, landscaping rules, even an oddly specific color chart for mailbox paint. But tucked in the back was something new, an unfiled zoning request. Dated 2 years ago. With Karen's signature, and Vin's old alias stamped under financial advisor. She started planning this before she even lived here, Cody said. Grant stood, piecing it together out loud. She moves in, creates a fake HOA from scraps, plants herself at the top, starts issuing rules, the kind that get people evicted or desperate to sell. Then Vin swoops in with cash offers and LLC shell buyers. The land changes hands, no one notices. And you, Cody asked, what were you, just a bump in the road? Grant smirked grimly. I was the bait she couldn't control. That afternoon, Grant met Agent Deacon one final time at a diner just outside town. Deacon brought coffee, a tired smirk, and one more. File. We found her name in a lease agreement, Deacon said. But the ID was fake. Traced it to a woman named Mara Kellen, born in Montana, vanished in 2011. That postcard she left, it's her way of telling you she's still in play. She's not just some HOA tyrant, Grant replied. She's a strategist. You won't catch her. Deacon leaned back. Maybe not, but you stopped the operation. Grant shook his head. I didn't stop anything. I just exposed one chapter. Then Deacon slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a folded sheet with 4 lines. Property claimed withdrawn. Investigative hold placed. Vehicle released to civilian. Surveillance concluded. You're clear, Deacon said. For now, back at home. Grant walked into the garage, unlocked the case containing the Rolls Royce's second key, and stared at the car like it might still be listening. Then he drove it, not out of the neighborhood, but to the only place it felt like it belonged, the town museum. He handed the title to the curator. Put it in the back, he said. Tell people it was once part of something. Misunderstood. That night, the neighborhood gathered for what was now being called a reorganization cookout. New volunteers were setting up a legitimate HOA, this time with votes, bylaws, and no surprise fines. Mrs. Trent handed Grant a plate of brisket. You always looked like trouble, dear, she said, but I'm glad you're on our side. As the music played and kids ran wild under porch lights, Grant sat beside Cody, watching the flames flicker in the grill. Think she'll come back? Cody asked. Grant didn't answer right away, but then he looked up. Across the street. In the shadows between 2 houses sat a golf cart, unmarked, empty, except for one thing. A clipboard, balanced neatly on the seat. Grant stood slowly, heart pounding, but when he reached it, the cart was empty. The clipboard, blank. Except for one sticky note. See you in phase 3. No signature, no threat, just a reminder. Karen wasn't gone. She was planning the next move. Call to action if you thought the story ended here. Think again. Sometimes the HOA isn't the enemy, sometimes it's just the beginning. Subscribe if you want more stories like this, because the next one might already be parked in your driveway.